Whilst Barack Obama left the White House to pick up Five Guys, we are going to go get some burgers. 41, that's what makes five men a deal with and special. John Eckford, the CEO of Five Guys Europe. Five Guys has a global cult following. Five Guys burgers are fries it became. Banging Covent Garden turned into the very first Five Guys out of doors of America. We knew that we weren't going to be advertising and marketing. We're absolutely counting on someone tasting a brilliant burger and crying and telling their acquaintances or their pals it has to be. It is amazing that Covent Lawn vicinity bought extra than any in the global it did. Yeah, by using a Waze, I'm answerable for 225 eating places. Now, how do you prevent getting a bit sloppy and complacent? We've honestly gotten better. The key to this is music. As the CEO of a business, it really is long passed via such chaos while was your hardest time. So I had youngsters. The reality is that there were moments wherein they woke up and needed both their dad and mom, and that I wasn't there. You may hurt the human beings you care about in approaches which you do not intend, in methods that you do not recognize. So without an addition ado, I'm Stephen Bartlett, and this is the Diary of a CEO. I hope no person's listening, however, in case you are, then please hold this yourself. Music. John, I have examined pretty notably through your tale, and I guess my first query is when you think returned for your pre-1920s, right? What's that? What are the most essential matters from that generation of your existence that formed your attitude and method to the arena and to commercial enterprise today? Wow, properly. First, I grew up in a very countercultural isolationist family, so we did not watch television. We failed to have fun birthdays or holidays, and were given up at 5 a.m. to exercise violin for an hour before faculty and had song classes after faculty every day. And so it become very exceptional, and that I assume I think I grew up feeling extraordinary with this type of music, longing to have a sense of belonging, and that become continually something that I was looking for in my professional existence. I suppose as nicely I were a fourth era medical doctor if I had gone into medicinal drug, and my father informed me that the profession changed into converting, and it wasn't a lot about sufferers and doctors and form of the dating that can expand in phrases of fitness and bringing you understand your fitness for your medical doctor and getting advice, and it was changing in the us dramatically. And so he stated, you realize don't do, which you recognize I am now not encouraging you to do medicinal drugs. So I knew I had to find a unique position in life, and I study and Rand in excessive school and not suggesting that she's gotten everything proper. However, one exciting component that she did advocate become that there could be something noble in business. You already know being a hit entrepreneur will be a noble thing, and the sort of orientation from my circle of relatives changed into make sure that you do something essential or for your life, and that's supposed you understand looking after different humans or doing something that had some extra cause to it than type of simply making money, but that seed of a notion that being in commercial enterprise could honestly be a noble career, and you surely could do something vital to make humans' lives better and take care of humans in a specific manner. And enterprise turned into an essential penny to drop for me while I used to be 18. But yeah, it changed into without a doubt, a special upbringing than most, and that feel of belonging is something I've been looking for my whole lifestyles. Do you think you've been attempting to find that sense of belonging extra so than the common person, I assume, so that I think in case you have something in abundance, you're taking it without any consideration perhaps, and it turned into something that I definitely didn't have, and that I very a great deal felt, you already know, an intruder looking in, and I saw this, you understand, different, other people had network, other children had network, and in form of broad-based totally friendships and an experience of really kind of cozy belonging, and that I always had this kind of stressful drive, which you realize seeking out that, and you recognize, I suppose, business changed into, you recognize, truly lived that out inside the enterprise world as well. You had quite an adventure through banking and being what we might name like a regional counselor and all these things, and eventually you returned to the United Kingdom, sort of where I wanted to start this tale off in 2010. I believe it really is right. Your accurate pal, Sir Charles Dunstan, who became the founder of Carphone Warehouse, and also you went into commercial enterprise firstly, and then you went on the lookout for a brand new enterprise to sort of companion with him on, and that is sort of where the Five Men memories begins. Sure, nicely, I had been a scholar here a long time ago and lived in a tiny basement one-room flat, lot smaller than the studio is, and Charles lived upstairs together with his sister and female friend, and that they invited me up for liquids someday, and that they pretty a lot adopted me for my year abroad, and we went to their parents' domestic in Cambridge and to Norfolk for a holiday, and they honestly made England feel like a home, and that I continually was always my ambition to return with the non-pupils' finances to England, and so the hazard came in 2010 and returned here, and Charles had just spun Communicate Speak Out from Carphone Warehouse, and so I wager you cannot be CEO of publicly traded corporations, so he had become chairman of each and CEO of neither, and started out questioning a bit more as an investor, and we got to speak me and wondering what's the next massive business, that opportunity that we could leverage his enjoy and popularity in retail. However, we desired some thing that Amazon wasn't so much a danger to as electronics. Online felt like a real chance to that industry section, and we thought food and beverage has were given to be a segment. It truly is a piece greater protected from the net world. You kind of have to expose, that is, before transport sort of blew up, you sort of have to reveal up and consume your meals wherein it's organized more. So we notion that could protect you from the online competitive world, but we didn't realize something about food and beverage, neither people did, and so we went looking for an incredible concept that wasn't in the UK, that we thought could bring that expertise we ought to bring, the kind of operational UK belongings expertise and hiring practices and market understanding, and companion with someone who would convey that meals and beverage revel into the proposition we talked to so many us principles that were not right here, and ultimately sort of collided with the Morellone family. There sincerely are 5 brothers and their father and mother, so there is 7 in the family. However, 5 brothers who are the 5 men who base the business, and they have been seeking to move international, having quite an awful lot allocated the use amongst their franchisees. How many? So what number of other concepts do you believe you studied, you checked out, and changed into their any near Mrs. turned into their any that you idea, what perhaps every other ideas that you nearly dedicated your existence to? Yeah. So we talked with a lot of various principles, and nonetheless in contact with a whole lot of the ones, those principles, and some of them had been actually beneficial in terms of constructing the 5 Men enterprise here. So you realize if you can use perception from every other concept that perhaps isn't a competitor is not right here, that can be surely useful, and some of those nonetheless may additionally can also come to play. Then why Five Guys? Nicely, I assume it begins with the product. You are aware of it. It is this type of simple, amazing product. You are aware of it's just burgers. You already know the menu is like shockingly stark. I suggest it's Miles Burgers and fries, and that's it. Whilst you take a chew of a Five Guys burger, if you have fries that are cooked precisely right, it is magical. I mean, it is, and it's extremely good. It is an international global beating product, and that became that changed into, I suppose there's so many concepts have had long past, like large, you understand, like there is such a lot of concepts in America, like you could get the whole lot in the menus, like a Bible, and you type a flip through the segment, you're like, how can they likely be making ready, repairing all these things at the top of the game, and Five Guys become going absolutely against that, which become, you realize each person informed the Morell family, you need to have a salad in case you're going to, achieve success. You have to have you recognize bird, you cannot just have a burger on your menu, and they are like, well, we upload other stuff to our menu, it just like blows our thoughts. We lose consciousness on creating an excellent burger. And so I suppose a part of their genius has been consciousness. You understand, we're going to do simply one thing and do it honestly well. I mean, that become the thesis for the founding of the commercial enterprise was, in case you're going to have your mother over and then make burgers, what might you do? You'll purchase the best high quality substances you possibly can. You'd make the entirety fresh. That was, I think, the Morells were to date in advance of their time once they founded the business in 1986, because there may be literally now not a freezer in the Five Guys gadget infrastructure. Everything is obsessively sparkling, and right before we signed the joint venture to deliver them here, there become take a look at finish that said the quantity one criteria that all people across the United Kingdom looked for in figuring out wherein you were going to consume became turned into the freshness of the meals and whether or not it was white tablecloth or at a quick meals region it didn't be counted. That was the most critical criteria, and that become like the Morales thesis. They now not the whole thing needed to be freshly organized that day or it went it's exciting because conceivably it seems to me like they were very a great deal at the right location at the proper time. There has been this macro alternate in public perception and attention round meals and what's going into meals, natural and vegan. A majority of these kinds of those conversations round food started out to emerge, which appears to have hurt loads of big brands in a very fatal way, whether it's in the sugar primarily based fizzy drink enterprise or whether it is in the fast food enterprise. It's workable that the sector ought to have long gone another way. Maybe we could have doubled down on liking even quicker food that has extra crap in it, right? Yes. So I simply surprise how important you think timing changed into in of their thesis catching public, that form of public wave getting into shore. No, I assume it really is. I think that is very, I think you are very right approximately, which you realize that our fries have three components in it: potatoes, the peanut oil we cook dinner it in, and a dash of salt. Some of our competition, have like 16, 19 ingredients in their fries. Like what else may want to there be in fries, so from our angle, you realize our fries start as potatoes within the starting of the day. They may be hand washed, hand cut, after which 2 times cooked to a totally precise popular and simply retaining it, again, just maintaining it simple. And I suppose it's very a good deal. I suppose they function themselves in front of a tidal wave without understanding it. And that trend of freshness, I think was a big, a massive win for the circle of relatives. I think the other factor that they did, which changed into very early on fashion, even early from whilst we determined it right here inside the UK, changed into customization and having something precisely the manner which you need it. We have 15 free toppings because of this, that you may have every burger, 250,000 approaches just via the combinations of those toppings. And the entirety is made with the aid of hand just for you. We do not cook whatever till Stephen walks in and says, you realize this is the burger that I want. Now the difficult component is that as quickly as you have positioned your order, there's 249,999 incorrect approaches to make your burger. So the purchaser, one issue of customer service is getting that right the first time. But customization changed into new. I assume I imply in the United States, it goes again to Harry met Sally and the manner she ordered her salad inside the you recognize inside the eating place. Is you understand an example of ways people want matters simply the way they want them. But I think it's been a more modern component to Europe. They like the chef need to recognize. Chef, tell me how I need to order this, and announcing, no, it need to be exactly the way you need it. And that I assume that trend is the millennials are very much onto, which you realize I need it exactly the way that I need it. And Five Guys is simply equipped for that. The complete system is like, I liken it to placing a Ferrari engine on pinnacle of an ox cart and then racing it round to music. So we're very vintage college, very analog in our product, in our manufacturing. It is very manual. Everything's handcrafted, but we will do a 4,000 pound hour out of, you realize, of Oxford Circus, making you realize burgers and fries. You will see sort of 25, 30 human beings running round madly in the back of an open kitchen making your meals. I assume that was the other mystery due to the fact 5 Men doesn't market it, so there actually is not any way for us to inform someone who doesn't know 5 Men what we are approximately, or you recognize what makes us special or unique. We're entirely counting on someone on foot into the restaurant, seeing how the food is prepared, tasting a splendid burger and fry, and then telling their pals or their buddies how the appearance you got to do that. So having an open kitchen in which you could see that freshness and the customization, I think, has been a part of the achievement of the business. It's almost like there's a set of truly strong values underpinning the business, and the business has been reverse engineered, maybe now not even opposite engineered, because while it is the case of a founding circle of relatives nevertheless strolling it, I am positive all of it comes sort of intuitively to them, however, and so in hindsight we have a look at it and pass it is the point of genius, that's the factor of genius, but it all comes from these underlying Values one of those is ready the freshness of the components and all being very actual so of route. The kitchen could be open right due to the fact you have not anything to hide sure however in hindsight you pass. Properly you know it's that is genius nicely know it'd be atypical to cover away the kitchen in this kind of context. But that particular factor about the kitchen being open at 5 Men may be very special from all of the other fast food eating places that got here earlier. Then 5 guys that ruled the excessive street wherein you'd order the burger, after which something would cross on within the again, and you then get this component wrapped up given to you sure. I have additionally visible this fashion with these types of fast salad retailers where they placed all of the vegetables, the carrots, and the cucumbers on show in the front of you, as if to mention these are the carrots that are going to enter your salad, yes, and it's small, you don't simply, you don't think approximately it as a patron that a good deal, but someplace subconsciously it truly genuinely topics right, you know. I mean, I suppose you understand a part of the unique founding of the enterprise. Jerry Morrell picked a completely obscure location and said, look, if we will make this location work, we know we've something it nearly become like a speakeasy. You know, we are like you realize knock 3 times and you already know a person will open the slide window and you deliver the secret phrase and then you definitely are available. And so Five Guys form have had a touch bit of that type of coolness component of like, good day, let me inform you about Five Guys. It is remarkable. And also you realize maybe you haven't heard of it, surely have not seen it on television or on the radio. However, it is tremendous. And in case you understand, come discover so that you understand. Whilst Barack Obama left the White House in his limo to head pick up Five Guys and for his office, you understand that was you already know an excellent example of the way, of course, you realize everybody knows who he's, and that's sort of like a megaphone. However, that's how 5 Men changed into located. That's how Five Guys constructed its commercial enterprise, changed into one recommendation at a time. And I will, don't forget Covent Garden was the first actual 5 Men out of doors of the us, and we would spend plenty of cash paying for the bar that was there to leave and then constructing the primary 5 Men, and we have been quite fearful. We have been properly into 5 figures, 7 figures for you understand for the brand new, for the primary store. And the night before establishing, we had been like, what takes place if no one comes? And Jerry Morrell laughed and stated, you understand appearance, you've picked a very good area. Someone's going to walk by way of right here and they may stroll in. We're going to lead them to a tremendous burger and they'll inform their neighbors and it is going to be satisfactory. And of course there become a queue at 0 a.m. inside the morning, and there has been a queue around the building for you realize the first years that the enterprise become open until we unfolded more Five Guys around there. Due to the fact humans had tried it in America, including me, I tried it, and I think I tried it in the US before I attempted it right here. I'm 99 sure that I tried on my way to Coachella 365 days or something, but and then while it got here, I used to be like, oh, this is that super burger vicinity from the United States. Is that why there has been a key around the Nook whilst you had been running there? Sincerely is a burger blogger community, right? This worldwide okay, and anyone talks approximately burgers and you are aware of it's one of these very articulate communities that, and there's lots of debate approximately who has the excellent burger and why it's the satisfactory burger, and Five Guys is in that debate, in that blend, and so we're truly fortunate for that. And actually, whilst Charles and I were thinking about who to do commercial enterprise with it, without a doubt, become when you recognize while Charles flew over and went to 5 Men in New York, turned into like this is Fanta, the product's great one aspect that we did truly in another way inside the UK. Changed into the assets approach, we notion the product changed into, it turned into a category winner. It was the quality that we had that we may want to discover, however it turned into located from an assets perspective, and you already know usually in strip centers and in kind of B locations in the us and we idea permits provided the property presence that it merits, and that I suppose that positioning was a surely critical difference that we made. Richard Collier, who runs our assets, has achieved an exceptional job of selecting the flagship locations. To mention there isn't always a better premium burger than 5 Men, and we are going to ensure that you find out us partly because of in which we are, so that you chose aspirational places because you desired to make the logo aspirational. Basically, well, we knew that we were not going to be advertising, so in case you can't inform people approximately who you need to depend upon the footfall and that which essentially becomes a phrase of mouth accelerator. So if you have a number of human beings on foot by way of your save, some will make the selection to come in, after which that larger institution who is available and then sort of tells absolutely everyone else. And that's really the manner the enterprise grew and worked. You recognize you have this rule where you do not do advertising and marketing. Has there ever been a time wherein you notion it? I simply want to simply run a little Facebook ad. You already know. The pandemic comes round, matters start changing in the arena you suspect. I simply want to, I recognize you joined some of the delivery services, which was a large, massive selection for the United Kingdom. Sure, due to the fact the USA hadn't finished that previously, it is proper, but in the one's moments do you now not suppose I just need to run a touch? It is actual tempting, isn't it? I imply, whilst you consider the dashboard that most meals and beverage executives have. You ever recognize you have a marketing dial that you could crank? You recognize you could select the best of your messaging and the finances which you installed and the manner that you spend it, and all those dials are long gone and rancid. The off the table, so that you comprehend it does attention. You at the matters that you could do that is making tremendous burgers and fries, hiring folks who are captivated with it. You recognize sort of back to the complete human beings thing. Those who are in the store make such a distinction. You realize food fundamentally is ready passion we all have. You remember the exceptional meals reports, which you've had you talk about them, and it becomes part of if you're on excursion, having top-notch meals is a part of that revel in, and having a passion. Approximately food is so important, and in having, I'm responsible for 225 eating places now, and 600 humans a day get up and put on a crimson shirt and cross into work into 5 men, and whether or not those individuals who are certainly shaking fries and grilling burgers care about the product that they're making, the meals that they are cooking, it truly is all of the distinction, because all we have is the client ingesting a first-rate product. It cannot be exact right if a client takes a chunk of a burger and goes, how it really is genuinely excellent, that doesn't pass the dial, not anything takes place. It has to be, this is terrific, I am going to go inform any individual who do I understand who likes suitable food. I'm going to tell them about a burger or a fries. You understand the fries. At 5 men, it has to be that level exact, and also you best get that degree precise with people who pour their ardor and their care into the meals that they may be getting ready, and having that many humans care about approximately. Burgers and fries is the you understand, I assume, the what makes us successful. You recognize that kind of psychological tool, this is making human beings need to inform their buddies. Do you spend tons of time thinking about precisely why this is like, what is the why could I care if I've had an extraordinary burger? Why could I care psychologically to inform my exceptional mate about that burger? What is it doing for me? It really is subsequent level wondering, Stephen, and in reality is the I1 aspect we had been able to do is to encourage the morels to widen their wondering a chunk, and shipping was an incredible instance of that, where they spread out a shop close to the Pentagon in a widespread known as Up Jerry, and said like 1,000 burgers at midday, and you understand Jerry bought a big signal and hung it up, no delivery, and positioned it at the side of the constructing, and you already know the thesis become right, which is that our burgers and fries flavor quality right off the grill. You understand, it's the high quality meals revel and you may get. However, we convinced him that clearly it wasn't simply your cheap nearby, you realize, guy who became turning in food. It became truly, honestly excessive first-rate meals, and increasingly humans had been truly seeking out certainly exact meals introduced. If you may come and attempt it here, from delivery, really before it went to America for sure, but we convinced them that each one of the higher eating place ideas had been in reality heading in the direction of transport. And so 5-6 years ago now, we released delivery in the UK, and it without a doubt worked. It sort of had become approximately 20 of our income, and that they noticed that of direction it is now not as good as proper off the grill, but it without a doubt is a superb product, and people love it, and it is able to work. And if you figure with your shipping and you've a dedication out of your transport partner to take care of the meals as it's transported to the patron, it could absolutely work. And we did a whole lot of stuff like telling human beings to, turn your oven on, 200 pop the fries in for about, only a couple minutes. It will surely, liven them up. before you eat them, so they saw that it worked right here and they picked it up and have passed for the duration of the pandemic. It was our lifeblood, you know. The whole thing, don't we? I continually sense like it's the biggest obligation I've is to the human beings that I work with, and if they ring me and they are in hassle, they've got a hassle, we ought to deal with that. That's absolutely the immediately you always going back for your early years in soccer, and as you came through the ranks you always, and I visible this in a couple of interviews type, of a little bit self-disparaging approximately your personal capacity. Yeah, I just played with exceptional players, didn't I mean in case you consider it, just go through the players who I played with. Yap Stam, you know, Dennis Irwin, Peter Schmeichel, Roy, OK David, Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Dwight York, Eric Cantona, every unmarried one among them had greater expertise and potential than I did you recognize. They just did it. It became simply apparent round me. Once I got to United Juice, approximately insecurity, the simplest time that I ever felt insecure turned into when I got to United. I got to get at 11, and that I joined at 11 in the Center of Excellence organization, and we were given retained every unmarried 12 months, but at 4 teenagers wherein it gets truly severe and they signal the Scott, the faculty boys, and the outer town lads are available, so all of a sudden you have been exposed to them, to Beckham, to Scholes, joined at 14 most of these incredible gamers, and you observed how am I going to continue to exist right here. I should simply, I am conscious, I recognize my own capabilities, and I needed to just do things, otherwise I was a midfield player, then I used to be a center return, then they want a position proper returned. There's a detail of truth in what Carrick has said. No one desires to develop as much as be a Gary Neville, which means no one's going to grow up to be a fullback. Everybody when they're a child scores dreams or sets up dreams, and you then discover which you're now not top enough to do that. And you get driven again. The group, it really is what happened with me. I used to be one position away that turned into the remaining. My ultimate hope, right, returned. You understand? I mean, I used to be out the crew. If I could not play right lower back, I'd long gone. From center midfielders 11, 12 months vintage at United, then dispatched it, returned from 14 to 18, after which told I would not, I wasn't good enough by way of my reserve group coach to be a middle again at United due to the fact Steve Bruce and Gary Palace were there, after which I visit proper return, so you are aware that you're being pushed from your positions by way of higher gamers, and that this is your handiest route to achievement is tough paintings and playing it right, returned and looking to adapt to that, and then it was suitable enough for me ultimately. However, you understand, it's not disparaging. I knew the sport I may want to arrange. I knew the game well. I studied the sport properly, and on the pitch I would never ever, I would by no means give in order that round me, this idea of being able to prepare the crew, I may want to see the sport in front of me, so I had an effect I trust had an impact on the other players that I played with beyond my skills via my information of the sport, and making sure that I never stopped going, and we in no way stopped going, we keep going, we simply preserve pushing ahead. So if we are preventing for a intention, you know, I always think what's that I by no means cross into this little stage of granules. I have in all likelihood by no means stated this earlier than whilst human beings say to me it is the greatest moment in my life. I say it's the final in 99 in New Camp when we received the treble, however, that I made a run from proper lower back. I got the corner for the primary aim because I sprinted over to the left wing and took the lengthy throw to place into the container. It came returned out to me, and we were given the nook. It's now not in help by means of any stretch of the creativeness typifies my profession of 7 goals and only a few assists. I'm no Trent Alexander-Arnold nor even the Dennis Irwin, however, that you need to find a way to win. You ought to just do the entirety. You probable are you able to cannot go away. Something on the pitch you just dash anywhere. You just do the whole lot, and that to me typified what possibly I used to be. That I ought to see something in that, you understand, in phrases of a way to impact a recreation, whether it be through impacting someone else by getting them going and giving them the ball and retaining them at it. And that is why I think he saved me there till I was 36, as it wasn't through capability on the give up. He kept me there those 36 just via my influence and my effect I had inside the dressing room. I am quite certain of that, because it wasn't via something that become doing at the pitch, so I'm constantly humble round my own capability due to the skills I had round me, and that's why I get stuck on Twitter. Quite often people will say to me, if you have not been at Manchester United, you've got been a task in right lower back somewhere like complete of my bum eye idea. Perhaps I've in no way heard all of us in a higher managerial role disagree with the phrase that tough work beats expertise while skills would not paintings difficult. Yeah. I suggest it is one issue I should in no way ever I may want to by no means ever be accused of whatever other than from the minute I joined at 11 to the minute I left at 36 Manchester United were given everything out of me, the whole thing, and to prefer. The membership gave me the entirety, so we failed to owe every different whatever, and that's something I'm proud of. Durability is clearly possibly one of the things. That consistency and durability, being capable of continuously work difficult every single day at a great degree of performance and turn up every single day and be there is underrated clearly, and that is the element that to me for surviving at 25 years underneath Alex Ferguson in that surroundings of excellence and demands that he located on humans was, you understand, it turned into a notable success, but I did that with lots much less talent than the players within the club. When become the first time you realized that Sir Alex Ferguson become you felt his effect, you felt his mindset, Joe something. In the early days it turned into the vintage faculty that head trainer no longer, he is no longer a head trainer by way of any stretch of the imagination, but you have a touch bit of worry that you may be having your father as nicely in case your father kind of gets a chunk angry with you, you know, that little bit of that dominating male of the 70s, 80s, 90s, probably going back past that was obvious in Sir Alex Ferguson, which you recognize, you knew whilst he walked into the room went quiet. That was that presence, that air of secrecy hit the boss's ear, and so that you felt it right now while humans say to me kind of how did you preserve coming returned each unmarried year and keep to hold prevailing what turned into the name of the game of that it changed into through his actions and what he did. I usually don't forget when I was 13 whilst did we lose the Champions League very last 2009, so I would have been 34 proper near the stop of my career. I was doing my we performed the Champions League very last on Wednesday. We misplaced. We were given lower back at the Friday from Rome, or Thursday or Friday at the Saturday. I had to go and choose up my boots at Carrington, the training floor, so it changed into a Sunday morning. I needed to pick up my boots at Contemporary inside the education floor to go to St. George's Park because I was doing my certified coaching badge and it become my very last evaluation, and I went in at 7 o'clock inside the morning. I might organize to satisfy with the caretaker who become basically there on website all of the time to allow me in, and I parked on the again and the his workplace lighting fixtures on, and he's there in his chair. I concept, oh no, I don't need to peer him. We simply lost the ECU Cup final for days in the past, so I drove again across the front and went and were given my boots and moved out. However, he turned into their Sunday morning 7 o'clock, the most effective person within the building, along with his light on 4 days after we would received the ECU Cup into a save. It has been the secret of the growth of the enterprise, because having that type of dedication from the man or woman who's displaying up and walking a shift, that's what makes this eating place successful. Going return to that factor about values, I would imagine that you understand from Speak Me to Honestly Sports teams and Speak Me to the Gamers in those Success Sports teams, whether it is the Manchester United Gamers that were under Sir Alex Ferguson for 20 atypical years, and that they said something to me which is absolutely thrilling, and I never forgot. Rio Ferdinand stated to me, he stated, how often do you believe you studied Sir Alex Ferguson came into the training floor converting room? I stated, I don't know, you tell me. He is going 2 times in 26 years, and I cross why, and he goes properly. The culture changed into in there, so he failed to need to come in, and it spoke, and then he advised me approximately whilst he moved to every other football membership, and in that same training floor converting room they're all bickering and speaking approximately how lots they're being paid and like slagging things off, while Sir Alex Ferguson in no way wanted to walk into that room due to the fact the subculture was already in there. And it made me reflect on consideration on how you recognize to hold the specialness of what made you a hit at one vicinity when you have got 225 those values and that culture need to be so sturdy. So if I am starting at 5 men in a control function today, what are you saying to me to show me right into a 5-men disciple well? I imply I bet that we do without a doubt have values that we pick out with inside the business, and hiring proper is vital. I mean, there is such a lot of gifted meals and beverage experts who are sincerely accurate at their task, but who are terrible in shape for us, and so being capable of locate the ones human beings who work in a Five Guys. So a standard supervisor works in the restaurant with customers, with group making burgers and fries, taking resolving issues and problems. There is no longer a computer job and a five men, so someone who is seeking out sort of, you already know, type of ice skate above matters, and you already know, not without a doubt, getting your arms grimy. It's now not the proper in shape for us, so I guess the first element we did turned into while we unfolded. No one knew who Five Guys have been, so we needed to beg human beings to paintings for us, and of direction, that it truly is constantly a mistake. We hired a whole lot of the wrong people, and you've got numerous churn early on attempting to find what that right match is. And so I consider it changed into a clearly essential decision we made, in which we are essentially going to invert the equation, and we said, you realize five men is be something completely distinctive. I'm sure it might be speaking approximately the father, it might be speak me about him taking place strike inside the authorities' shipyards, it is probably speak me about another experience that he has had, but he might tap into everybody inside the dressing room in a few manner that could mean they had locate something to intend they might by no means supply in, and that's what he is. His films called By No Means Give In, he in no way provide in, but also the impact he had on others in no way to give in via locating something in them changed turned into terrific. Rio talked to me lots about tradition and the lifestyle that Sir Alex Ferguson said. Everest stated the identical component, having left soccer now and running inside the international of commercial enterprise, you may ought to be searching returned on the way of life he created, and in some ways drawing a lot from that during your personal organizations proper. What have you ever learned approximately the significance of way of life, due to the fact there has been a comment made to me at the podcast that I have in no way forgotten, which is ready. Sir Alex Ferguson's loss of presence on the education ground. Rio stated he best got here into the schooling training room dressing floor a couple of times, due to the fact he did not want the lifestyle turned into in there. After which Rio mentioned how then, whilst Rio went and moved directly to every other membership in that identical dressing room, gamers are talking approximately how plenty money they are making and all of those different things which would never have took place at United. Now how does one create that lifestyle? I think being grounded, he become grounded, and he believed within the kind of the work ethic turned into the entirety to him, being proud to paintings, tough, being pleased with the humans around you who work, tougha, being happy with your teammates. I used to say, go searching the alternate room appearance round. I am proud of every single one of you, however, look at every different, observe what you every do for every other on the pitch, and now you can't obtain what you are going to attain without each difference. So we made us admire each other. No longer everyone were given on in our converting room, but most of us did. But he tapped into the ones things all of the time. It become non-stop, and being grounded, looking after human beings, little such things as Wendy used to get the charity balls signed, and Roy Keane turned into this as properly. So while every Thursday we'd have 30 to 40 charity balls that we might signal, and then they would visit the children's charities or the unique charities in Greater Manchester or within the United States of America. And now and again, you're in a hurry, are not you? You're a football participant, you are younger. Oh, Wendy, I'll signal him after I am in a Madras. I have got relatives and the team and then the clients on the surroundings, and being able to have that direct line of conversation to the entire corporation was genuinely effective, sort of cut via numerous, the fear and uncertainty approximately at one. Two is that we are now investing massively in gaining knowledge of and development. We 75 of our managers are promoted internally. So those are those who have joined us. We've got humans who have joined this crew and long gone directly to be district managers, place managers now. So that kind of profession opportunity is first rate. So in case you're formidable, if you have career dreams, come to Five Guys, due to the fact we are developing and we need your expertise to develop the business. So being able to initially, we recognize that profession inner improvement is type of the quality course to growing interior of five men and having new leaders for all the eating places that we're establishing. We're given to invest within the younger, those who are joining five men and teaching them not just burgers and fries, however, the way to manage, how to control humans. You understand there's so many distinctive varieties of human beings that it takes to make a restaurant work. The way you communicate with one team member may be very distinct from the way you communicate and motivate with another one, and giving our managers tools for how to connect to all different types of people who work for them is a vital investment that we make. Before the pandemic happened, I think I said lots in this on this podcast, and simply usually that my single biggest mastering being a younger entrepreneur beginning in enterprise, after which making all the errors and then getting a touch bit extra mature changed into the significance of expertise. And I usually say that by means of definition of the word business enterprise, the definition of the phrase employer way group of human beings took me too lengthy to parent that out, because after I started out I turned into 20 years vintage. You realize you simply rent your mate right here. 18 years. Antique. I started out my first companies employed my buddy here. I met someone at rap event. I was like, you could be my advertising director. Went into Pradamet and other guys that you can be the top of our account. It changed into just that type of whoever became inclined. Right. Exceptional people, exactly probable who I wished at that section. But for the following segment you need to I found out which you want a one faking caliber of person, and virtually I should had been a piece more formidable from the jump if I am being completely honest. And so now I reflect on it and suppose damn, in fact each company is only a recruitment commercial enterprise at its middle. Like if I had employed Steve Jobs, I'd have ensure them with the right way of life and values. Yeah, I would have had an Apple proper. I might have made an Apple. How critical do you think it is to hire the great human beings, and the way how do you move approximately that? What's the approach? Yeah, properly to start with. I think we had the gain of seeing the success of 5 men within the Americaso, Charles, and that I had a conviction that even before we opened the first store, of course we had been worried whilst we opened it, however, that we idea we had a tiger through the tail, because we notion the product was exceptional. So we have been able to gather folks who were tested to be actually appropriate at what they did from the outset, and type of like across the board within the senior control group. So Julie Spear, who is my head of operations, unbelievable. We would not be where we are without her. Richard Collier, who's head of property. He spread out 400 stores for Carphone Warehouse all throughout Europe. Surely established expert. Those two have been critical. We might never be in which we are without the ones people. But then type of using that all the manner down to the primary group person who you rent in a brand new and for a new store, highly essential due to the fact they are truly going to be making the burger and fry for the consumer who walks in there. And I suppose that you recognize it's probably in City Fantasy, but the Shackleton story, approximately you realize setting an ad in the paper for his, you already know, South Pole expedition, it's going to be dangerous and risky. We're going to probably, you already know, we may not come lower back alive. However, if we do, there'll be glory. That type of bad cellular, I suppose, became a vital factor for us, in which you already know Five Guys is a surely tough activity, huge expectation, bodily demanding task. It is now not for everybody. And then, declaring that, being assured enough to say, look, you realize you're a totally talented human professional in meals and beverage, but you're simply now not the right fit for us, and being the confidence to say no in that regard. That was hard, but I think that was a real turning point in the business for us. What approximately firing humans. It's the worst part of the commercial enterprise, actually difficult. I imply it's you recognize if you get it incorrect, it is so painful. You recognize these are people who are human beings, and if the job's both outgrown them or they had been the incorrect cultural match, it's without doubt glaringly it's difficult for them. But I suggest it is surely it is a soul-crushing moment, which makes it that much more essential to rent proper. And inside the interview for lifestyle, you realize, however, whilst an interview subsequently receives to my degree, I am 100 centered on subculture. I imply that the whole qualification of their expert skills has been addressed by the point they get to me, and I'm completely centered on, are you an excellent cultural healthy? Are bendy running, they are available Monday, they do not ought to, are available Tuesday, they could come in Wednesday, I accept. as true with them to do what they want. So there's and detail of, yeah, I want hard, I do assume difficult paintings. However, I also need humans to have a top-notch time in sharing the achievement that we have, but also make certain that if I am off, I might expect that they've the ones times off as properly. I wouldn't count on them to are available, and I don't hate the idea of a piece package. It really has got like you've got 25 days holiday, you need to book it, and I hate that. I hate the idea of restrict. I hate it. I experience like it's bullying. You must take a seat there in the office. I hate it. It is not right. It isn't right. Don't tell human beings where to take a seat, how to paintings. Obviously there may be a course and there's a leadership. It truly is wished, but I just feel it is absolutely now not perfect, but now this became pre-covered. Our workplace is like, to be fair, this room that we're in here now, so someone could be sat there, a person ought to be sat there, a person might be sat at the ground over there with a U already. No, on a laptop, that's how it ought to be. In an office, it should continually be like that. I assume, I don't suppose it wished, I don't assume it ever, I don't think you wished Colvid to make modern day commercial enterprise act properly with the teams that they paintings with, so I do feel it is very exclusive than how we have been at United. That's the A2EA4E17954BKX0423CB2 cost. There's still some A2EA4E17954BKX0423CB2 values you've got. To work hard, we have to get the task executed. We understand that. However, why do you have to mention that to human beings? I suppose people recognize they ought to work out and get the activity achieved. So why do you have to say that to them? You're trying to tap into them, make something unique in your commercial enterprise that makes them need to stay. It really is what you noticed you may want to make it exciting, and which could nonetheless be enjoyable through hard work. I suppose it's quite enjoyable working. I understand people that give you the results you want. Yeah, because you understand we're given a colleague that used to work for me that works for you presently, and they're all very, very complimentary. So it's supported by using it, truly is supported by using the proof that however, you're proper. I've always observed that the contradiction there may be trust you're announcing to your group members to accept as true. With you, however, you are not trusting them, and consider I experience like has to move both ways, and the other what finally ends up going on whilst you have the ones in my revel and the ones very inflexible regulations is you may get compliance, however you might not get like motivation, and as you've defined it, you need human beings to be internally pushed, now not compliant due to punishment. And that gets the pleasant out of humans proper. It's interesting due to the fact Valencia taught me plenty. However, round that time I used to be with England Education with Roy Hudson, and I would lived at United, in which we have been fined. Nunez got sent off remaining night for head button at Anderson. This is week's wages at Manchester United. We're given fined 2 weeks wages, often 4 or 5 times it takes place. Football, it wouldn't show up in a regular place of business. However, we know Sir Alex Bergson's policies in case you violent behavior or chatting lower back to a referee, you get fined. In fact, he might not take delivery of it. Human beings think Alex Ferguson changed into like get after the referees. However, if we really got booked for having to head a referee, we would get fined. So quite a rigid component. And then Roy Hudson stated something to me while I used to be with England, and that I felt the one's requirements were slipping a bit. One time, I can't recollect precisely what it was about, and I stated we need a few guidelines due to the fact we had a code of behavior at United. I used to be the participants rep. I knew what the sort of standards have been, and he said to me, we don't set rules. He said, be very careful with regulations. He stated, as it's usually the people which you don't want to break them that spoil them. I notion it's pretty clever that and ever, because there aren't any policies, there are no guidelines in our business, and phrases of you should be right here, you ought to try this, you have to wear, which you understand. I do not anticipate formality in get dressed. I count on humans to be cozy, so I don't say you must wear this, otherwise you have to be here at that time, or we were given to try this in any a part of my bed. I don't create rules anymore, because when you create regulations for start, it is rigid. I don't agree with it is right, and the policies are there. They are unwritten. Certainly the rules of type of running tough and turning up and doing all your job, all the things that the regulations are there, just they simply should be written down, and you recognize, you spot what occurs if you superstar participant walks in. It truly is breaking, because the opposite ones that you understand we have been speak me about that changed into set within the low standards. It happens if one of the celebrity player walks in, and We need to paintings with the gamers to make certain that they apprehend what we count on of them and the standards. We do not want to set policies because in case you set rules and outcome and punishment, then it will be the one that you don't need to damage them, and then you definitely in a huge, you're in big trouble. So it was an awesome lesson for him. And in football, it is very tons of exceptional vicinity than an ordinary place of business. Besides, it does not stay by way of HR guidelines, a soccer dressing room. It would not, it doesn't, players are still getting fined, players still get informed where to be, when to show up, what to wear. We love it as well. I nonetheless adore it now in reality. I like truly being instructed what to do. I honestly find it irresistible at Sky, whilst humans say to me, Gary, we are doing this, you already know. I like being advised. What I reply to it genuinely properly due to the fact I've had it to be truthful. However, I have been informed from Eric Harrison, Nobby Patterns, Brian Kidd, Sir Alex Ferguson. I have been informed through the 70s and 80s you couldn't stay through the 70s and 80s as a child, early 90s, without being informed due to the fact that changed into the form of leadership. So we nevertheless respond to it a touch bit in our personal lives, but then when I think about my kids, I do not instruct them. I like independent thinking. I really like them. So whilst humans communicate approximately social media, or whilst people talk about, you recognize, I was sat with a person the day past who stated, I am fearing my youngsters were on social media. I always say to them, your kids ought to get true at social media, surely, Speedy, because they have to, they should be good at it. So my youngsters are 13 years of age now. They may be all enthusiastic about social media with the apps. They may be on it all of the time. And from time to time, we're going to say, you already know that is sufficient tonight and allows come off it. However, I need them to get right at it. I want them to apply it and find out what data they are able to agree with and what they cannot trust. I exploit Twitter now all the time for my too debate, but also so definitely my information. My most important supply of news is Twitter. It's my principal source of information. In my lifestyles, it's really beneficial. I don't assume as a sports activities journalist broadcaster I should live without Twitter. You're virtually essential to me. So while people say that Twitter's the suspect, get off it. There are elements of it which are, however, that is a absolutely important thing for me in my lifestyles, due to the fact I find all of the kind of articles, all of the kind of critiques, all the breaking information is there. How can I stay without that? It's what I depend on with the intention to do my job. So once I come off the pitch, remaining Saturday, Sunday doing Manchester United, completely doing Western Man City, and as he managed to United bid for Arnautovic, I used to need to wait till the morning after for the newspaper 15 years ago. Our kids are not like that anymore. They want things instantly. They see things fast, and they do not want to be informed. We ought to collaborate with them. There may be an inevitability. You are absolutely proper to social media and the net and digital to be able to sincerely, I consider, as nicely will function. A drawback to them if they do not maintain up, because you cannot think about a career in recent times that does not contain social media or the internet, so that you realize in to be able to try to protect kids. Every so often we truly cause them a quite widespread profession disadvantage. It should be trained at schools that have to be on the curriculum. Social media, a way to use it, when what to use it for, a way to get good at it, the risks of it. It need to be something that's taught. It is, we're given to be more beneficial to them than some of the topics that they're currently being taught in 2022. Yeah, you understand. While that is, I suggest this is not a pleasant subject matter to speak about due to the fact we are each Manchester United fans. However, through all you've been through in the technology you grew up in and all of those famous impacts you had that instilled those values in you, or even the early initiations you had in that dressing room from the senior gamers, and you understand, I examine about all of that stuff as well whilst you appearance at what's happening on the membership today. Even though you're no longer not within the dressing room, you ought to have a pretty quite sturdy hypothesis as to why Manchester United in 2022 are failing based on what you skilled. Yeah, I suppose it comes down to a lack of management and direction from the top and vision, and a deterioration of the type of beliefs over an extended time frame. I stated final night genuinely that a school that's underperforming over a long time period and getting terrible effects gets installed special measures by using Ofsted and by government, and they are no longer blaming the children in a way that the governors it means that the kind of the pinnacle teachers, the people on the top of the employer at the college, have not basically set the requirements for those kids, and they've allowed the college essentially rot and the consequences become bad. I think it really is what's took place at United. It turned into a high acting school. The pinnacle trainer has left the board of the governors, left David Gill, and what's befell when you consider that is that they have been changed with folks that have not got it, and terrible standards have just intended that in the long run over a time frame there has come to be an embedded rot, and that's what's passed off, and all the youngsters, the players, look now like they have not got a clue anymore, and they're getting terrible effects. I do not trust all the ones Manchester United gamers which are on that pitch are poor players once they got here to the club. A number of the ones players I used to be actually excited by way of their arrivals, and I have visible gamers that weren't as desirable as them go to other golf equipment in Excel. So the surroundings, the subculture, the enthusiasm which you want to go into work each single day, I do not accept as true with, has been created by using the hierarchy at the club, and then there may be been a form of a loss of investment into the centers, into the stadium, into the education floor. So now Tottenham, Liverpool. Now stay people. I used to chuckle once I used to visit Anfield whilst I used to examine it to Old Trafford. I used to assume they could in no way seize up. They're too far at the back of, they're just building that 2D stand now at the back of that left in purpose, wherein the away enthusiasts sit, and we noticed it last night. Towering up, the essential stand now's towering up, and it holds, I don't know, it holds 20,000. Anfield may be a extra contemporary ground. Then Manchester United and vintage Trafford in one year. This is unforgivable from to think we are now not all taking us on the pitch. However, certainly they have overtaken us off the pitch. Manchester City are light years ahead on and stale the pitch. Tottenham have invested 13 billion in stadium. You've got been to a Tottenham stadium. Oh yeah, it's out of this international. It's other great within the international. It's a museum. It's the best inside the global. I can't believe what I'm strolling via after I see it, and yet if you visit their training floor, which I have been to, it is in wonderful high quality facility. This is some distance higher than Carrington, in which we moved to in 2001. We moved to Carrington, so in 2000 we moved to Carrington. We left the Cliff Education Ground in Salford, so it's 22 years. It is a bit of funding, however, in 20 years Manchester United have no longer invested within the stadium. They've now not invested inside the buying and selling floor that much, and then they've misplaced the two predominant human beings, and before you already know it, you've got a membership that's genuinely struggling, and I have stated that inside the last couple of years the best component that I virtually do think can change it now is the possession, and I say that on right here more evenly than I say on Sky Sports activities. However, it is no longer an emotive situation anymore. It's a totally critical trouble. There's an embedded rot at the club. You realize that they are walking past Wendy's balls now, don't you? You know what I imply? No, is in like signing Wendy's balls. Oh, sorry, sure, personified for me. Yeah, carrying approximately values in each single touch point, even the small stuff. Yeah, and so I was thinking then I will almost believe now those small expressions of our values, as you stated, they come from the top down. Yeah, are possibly now being missed. It's funny because as fans we study the aspect we were given. He's no longer running rapid sufficient, or blame this player or Fred or does this play or whatever. But when you've worked for me, whilst I have worked in an agency, I found out that the values, the way of life, the whole thing begins from the pinnacle. And if you deliver in brilliant, and as we have visible at Manchester United, you may bring within the excellent stars into a bad way of life, they'll turn out to be horrific performers. Yeah. And I constantly said in a enterprise context as properly, if the subculture is robust, sufficient new people become the culture. If the subculture is susceptible, the tradition will become the new human beings. It's why I used to be kept at the age of 33 to 36 in the because you're a disciple of the route due to the fact because Rafael da Silva from Brazil is available and I am the proper lower back. It is the senior right again, and who does he appearance to? He looks to me, he looks to Paul Scholes, he appears to Rio Ferdinand, and he sees human beings which are at the very pinnacle of the game, their revel in their give up of the careers. It's why I appeared at Steve Bruce and Brian Robson, Eric Cantona. I had nowhere to head. As a young player, I knew I had to do what they had to do, else due to the fact they were all doing it every unmarried day. They've been doing it 15 years. I do feel sorry for the modern gamers, and that won't go down nicely with a lot of Manchester United lovers, because A lot of Manchester United fanatics will say they are overpaid and they are chanting it and bluffing it. They're not. They're now not. I understand a number of those lads. They're desirable lads if they have been sat right here now with me and you'd be thinking there may be in detail a vulnerability there. There's a loss of self-assurance. They may be crying out for assist. I want they had Sir Alex. I desire they'd Roy Keane inside the changing room with Nemanja, Vidic and Rio Ferdinand at center again and Peter Schmeichel in aim. Due to the fact in the event that they would grow, they could thrive, they would deliver if the Manchester United group these days became David De Gea and aim Patrice Evra. Left back Harry Maguire at center again with Varane, it was me. At proper back in midfield there was Roy Keane and Michael Carrick. On the left changed into Marcus Rashford, at the right turned into Jadon Sancho. Up front was Marshall with Rooney or Hughes, the ones identical. 5 or 6 gamers that we are presently pronouncing can not exact enough to play for Manchester United. They might be top notch if Sir Alex Ferguson became the supervisor, if the lifestyle turned into still there. It's, I do not without a doubt, that is probably, I do not even know what I have simply stated. To be truthful, I've now not stated it before. I am trying to mention, if you surround yourself with the aid of the ones humans who have got those standards, who were given that, revel in, who can cradle you via the tough moments like we were when we have been young players, whilst people stated we gained the league with kids, we wouldn't have won the league without the experienced players in that dress room around us and the steering of Alex Ferguson. They've not were given that guidance off the pitch, and they have got now not were given that steerage and consolation on the pitch. I used to walk out inside the tunnel with Peter Schmeichel in the front of me, Roy Keane in the front of him, at the back of me manifestly David Beckham constantly went behind me. However, Dennis listening to in the front of me, I felt secure. I was 21, 22, 23 years of age. I felt safe. I felt cozy because I knew I was being taken care of by means of skilled humans. I knew that I wasn't on my own. Those players exit onto the pitch now. They sense on my own. They do not experience like they've got everybody. It is where I am a touch bit critical of Cristiano. You are the man. You are the star. You are the first-rate participant within the international. Come on, now's not time to be throwing your arms around. Now is not a time to be on foot off the pitch. Now's the time to make sure you lead those people. But he desires to go away. He desires to cross and play some other place, and that might appear, and you could blame him. He wants to end his profession at a membership. It really is reaching high-quality things. However, I do assume he's the only player in that dressing room that could lead them, due to the fact he is the best one. It's we're given the inbuilt resilience and mental energy to get through a second love. It might not be touching him this apart from a non-public frustration degree. The truth that he is playing a crew is not giving him the possibilities, the desires, the achievement he desires, but on a factor of view of complaint, he may not be touching him. He has performed at actual Madrid. He has played at Manchester United. He's received 5-6 Champions League. He has won Ballon d'Or. He's now not, you cannot contact him with the complaint or words. It is impossible, so he can resist all his stress and defend the ones gamers at the pitch. That is what I assume Roy Keane did with us, what Peter Schmeichel did, what Cantona did, what Robson did. They protected us. If I took high Cristiano Ronaldo whilst he came in from Portugal and I positioned him in modern team, he'd war each battle. I think he definitely would war without Sir Alex's steerage, without the staying power of Sir Alex and Carlos Queiroz, who had that staying power with him on the time. Do you suspect his profession might look completely? It might. Appearance special. You communicate to Paul Gascoigne and asked Paul Gasco while he selected Tottenham over Manchester United, and he says that if you come to Manchester and work with Sir Alex, he feels as even though his career and his existence might have gone down a different direction, and that's why I stated at the very start of this interview, why am I like I used to be very fortunate that I wasn't within the center of London at 22, being led with the aid of skilled players who desired to move to nightclubs or to bars. I was in Manchester with Dennis Irwin and Sir Alex Ferguson and Roy Keane and Mark Hughes and Brian Robson, who, don't get me incorrect, they preferred a night out, but they knew additionally that needed to come on the proper time, and they would be responsible and make certain you introduced at the pitch. So I experienced blessed and privileged by the impacts that I had in my life. We communicate about influencers now in a unique manner, do not we? However, truly we're heavily motivated by means of the people that we come into touch with, and that is in which your luck is available in existence due to the fact I cannot select who I come into touch with in life. You already know, you stroll into a business to take a process you do not know that there are 150 human beings inside the commercial enterprise. There could be a few definitely right human beings in there that have an effect on you nicely and make it really at ease for you. There will be some terrible eggs that suggest that you need to have a terrible revel in and affect you in a one-of-a-kind way. I simply got virtually fortunate all through my career that I arrived at United when they started out within the Premier League. I then obviously had an exquisite supervisor. I had amazing senior players. I had good mother and father. The entirety turned into right in my lifestyles to affect me to be what I'm these days. Without that, I'm now not the individual I am. I wasn't Gary Neville, resilient, difficult, mentally strong, could manage whatever, better work ethic than each person else while I was 10. I used to be a kid just to be truthful, going to high school like all of us else, but I had extraordinary people around me I believe that helped me. I don't agree with those lads now in that dressing room were given that around nicely. They have not were given that. Round them I had a concept cross my thoughts for the first time ever this week, and as a Manchester United we're going to go down well. I grew up, my delivery year turned into 1992, so I have only ever recognized first-rate times at Manchester United quite a lot, and it changed into the primary time that I played out the scenario in my head that it is not assured that we return to being champions. It's all I've ever recognized, and it turned into the first time that I began doing the equation of like how do high quality clubs fall, and this is one of the years in which I have seen one of the Real catalysts is okay, so the brand begins to go to pot. They lose industrial offers, then superb players like Haaland and Nunez. Do not pick out the membership, then we cannot get top-notch expertise. We then don't have the cash to get the notable skills at an inflated fee, which we should have paid in within the first couple years after the downfall. And then I am wondering, okay, so this could we may want to there may be a risk, and that I hate to mention it because I am an inner optimist. It is embarrassing, however, every 12 months while we do a little school predictions in my football chat, I am like we are going to win the league every 12 months for the ultimate 3 years. I am deluded, but this become the first time I entertained the thought that we might. It's no longer assured that we return to the club we were. I placed us in the pinnacle for each. I did it. Remaining week, you understand my predictions, but you already know something I recognize full properly. We're no longer going to finish inside the top four, however I ought to simply as it's the Manchester United inbuilt thing which you say we are going to finish inside the pinnacle four, however, that is how our expectancies have dipped, as properly due to the fact we used to mention we are going to end pinnacle. No, I am satisfied Manchester United will return truly without a doubt, convinced why it's not conceitedness this, and it is now not because I am biased, and it's now not due to the fact I've long gone to watch the membership because the age of 5 I have traveled around the world with the club for the remaining 30-40 years. I've seen the quantity of the fan base, the emotion that exists within the fan base, the size of the membership, and it's the rules are too deep, but those foundations were created due to like generational success. However, we had glaringly, we had the Busby Babes durations about Busby, then we had 30 years, 25 years before Sir Alex introduced domestic league title, so we've had 25 years before that. We've got long past via without success. Manchester United isn't going away. It is now not going. It is too massive. It is too big. It's too magical. It is too accurate. That is no longer, that is not emotion. That is simply if I experience very, very strongly about that. This is, there is in detail of cycle here which you recognize. We get in kind of our down duration, but we shouldn't receive that because I'm happy to lose football fits. I am glad to be fourth within the league, 13 in league, sixth within the league if we're doing the right matters. So we were given a piece. Manchester United must usually have a global elegant stadium. It hasn't. It suggests our excellent in class training facility. It is always our fine and elegance a laugh experience. He should usually buy the first class beam for the pleasant players. Inside the most advantageous league, he ought to usually have younger. I was off my game, or you recognize I didn't suppose it through, and also you recognize, and it should be the other, it have to be the other of that, and then, showing that you can respond to that sort of undertaking, I assume is essential as a leader, and then you definitely give anyone else permission to do the identical issue. I mean, you can trade your mind, you're allowed to change your mind, you are allowed to be wrong as a fallible human being too, and confessing that it is effective, that confession there after when I heard that instance, what it virtually says to me as well is that as a CEO you care more approximately the correct answer now not being right, so that might be puzzling, as because of the way I stated that whilst you come stand in the front of your crew participants and say what in hindsight I certainly got that in reality incorrect, and I up what you're certainly saying is my number one thing is John is to B is to discover the proper answer now, not for me to be correct. Yeah, and it is it is honestly refreshing to hear that you are looking for truth and the accurate answer now, not in search of validating your personal, your very own reviews in yourself, which, as you say, creates that way of life of humility in which optimistically others round them will go, additionally wrong in this situation. Precisely, enterprise should not be in homage to an person proper. I suggest we're about perfect burgers and fries, hungry customers, smooth restaurants, customer service, and this is honestly easy. I suggest it's not and if any people isn't the proper man or women to fill the feature that we're presupposed to be performing, you understand, we all should enhance our hand and say, you understand, it's in all likelihood not me anymore. How do humans supply, do you've got a machine in which human beings at 5 men may want to provide, which are operating there inside the crew should supply critical comments appropriately. Yeah, so I imply we do have kind of like the scheduled annual conversations. I failed to often, you realize it changed into type of in my you recognize, in my do not micromanage. You are aware of it changed into simply form of like you realize humans will come to me in the event that they, in the event that they need to, and I assume that likely changed into incorrect. And you understand saying, look, we are going to have a devoted time. And then without a doubt, I don't like fill out a form wherein you recognize. So you did well in this and poorly in that you recognize we do. Not I don't do that, however, I take a seat and say, permits communicate about what labored and what didn't, both from, hazard for you to what we noticed growing up. Additionally, Metropolis Town have executed brilliant things. Pep Guardiola is a genius. The football is enthralling. The operation is slick. However, I say this as it will deliver you already no grievance from probable some football fanatics, and definitely for Manchester Town lovers, it'll in no way ever be Manchester United, and that's not conceitedness. It simply cannot be. What Manchester Metropolis, it is able to in no way replace Manchester United in terms of scale and length. It may win trophies. It is able to win extra trophies, but it is able to by no means be larger in scale and length. It is not possible. It does no longer have the roots, the records that it simply does not have at Manchester United. Is 2 units. We'll see. I am no longer concerned about the long term. I am very involved approximately the fast term. What one of the matters that human beings don't know about you I accept as true with because I become I am you. No, I'm fairly properly examine on what you do. However, I failed to realize this is just the dimensions of your type of commercial enterprise portfolio. It is quite surely mental. I don't do all of the the media stuff which you do. I am no longer on TV all of the time supplying soccer. I'm not in that arena. And when I look at your enterprise portfolio and thoughts, I am going, this man does as an awful lot as I do from a business angle. However, you are now not known to the sector first and main as an entrepreneur. Maybe this is the second component. Human beings recognize you as a football legend. Second aspect could be entrepreneur, and the second aspect is you don't even like the word entrepreneur no longer genuinely. No, I do not. I think it's like broadcast. I do not like the word broadcaster. Perhaps it is like maybe this is in lack of confidence, certainly, or a vulnerability. People say to me, you are a broadcaster, but I do not experience like a broadcaster. I do not experience like I have earned. Yeah, I experience like Martin Tyler or you understand, Des Linium. They're broadcasters. They're reporters. They may be skilled. They do it. I don't sense like a broadcaster due to the fact I still sense younger. However, I am no longer younger anymore. That honestly, in phrases of I have been doing it now for 11, 12 years, and identical with entrepreneur. If you always sense there may be something a little bit, am I able to swear? It feels a bit wankerish a little bit. However, I think to be fair, probably I have to begin calling myself that due to the fact I do have there is one constant. They're all in more Manchester aside from a media career that can sometimes manifestly be in London, but they may be all in Greater Manchester and Salford, Trafford, Manchester Metropolis Middle, and I feel very focused around my investments in that. And a few people might say this is naive. might have got helped faster have you no longer taken into consideration implementing greater era in and inside the place of humans. That sounds quite brutal, but it's simply the fact. Yep, no, I imply era is a part of the solution. It is actually, and in reality possibly your phone is already there, and there has got to be a way to make yours this verbal exchange tool which you already have for your hands set up to an effective way inside the eating place. Now increasingly young human beings assume technology to be part of their journey and their securing of the matters that they need and want, however they may be there. Additionally, folks who are you recognize absolutely opposed to that. You recognize we are a completely analog brand in that experience. I suppose that there may be extra openness to generation, and there ever has been before, so we did curbside carrier, which essentially is like opposite Uber, wherein we can kind of track your automobile as its strategies, and we are able to put together your food as we see the countdown for your arrival. And so the form of ideal state of affairs which we frequently get is wherein you pressure up and the fries have just come out of the fryer and shaken and salted and prepared to head, and then it kind of like comes collectively beautifully at the proper second, so that we should use generation to meet the consumer's wishes and to cope with the ones individuals who decide upon era too. And also we cannot be anywhere and be best in every you recognize in phrases of responsive. So yes, era will be a part of that interaction going ahead, relatively caught among two generations, I imagine, due to the fact I used to be in Nando's the different day, and the primary time they have told me, oh, you could just order from the QR code stuck on the desk proper, and that I believe my dad might not like that experience. Yeah, for me it became convenient. I said best exceptional as not to speak to anybody ordinary you recognize millennial gender, however well, and then we need to be able to adapt for the client because they are people who definitely view customer service as now not having to talk proper. I genuinely simply need to stay in my own international, and then you recognize press a button and then get exactly what I need and we need to be aware of that. How a good deal do you suspect that the shape and the way that the enterprise, the foundations of the business in terms of it being a joint task with the Morales as opposed to a franchise, and usually the philosophy toward what you are constructing and how long that type of time horizon has impacted the product, and therefore the purchaser, and therefore the achievement of the business enterprise. Well, I suggest a path my experience is distinctly biased due to the fact all I have ever regarded is the organization-owned model, and so the franchise model is genius, and it simply works, and there is a powerful electricity to it, and you can emerge as definitely strong as a franchise and franchise commercial enterprise. It certainly worked properly for us. You recognize we wrote, whenever you each time you form an employer, and on every occasion you shape a joint project, you sort of have these types of regulations, and you recognize governance and a way to make choices. And we've in no way even referred to it as soon as over the past 12 years, so you recognize the having nothing but building a worthwhile enterprise has been outstanding for me as a major exec, because I knew that my shareholders had been completely aligned, and we would by no means have made the selections that we did, in particular from an assets attitude, without being a joint mission. As a franchisee, you wouldn't have paid the top rate to buy a 10,000 rectangular foot belongings on the Champs-Élysées and among the Louis Vuitton Company headquarter and the Abercrombie and Fitch International flagship save. And there may be 5 men. It's notable you are aware of it. It is possibly the maximum excessive profile seen 5 men apart from the one. This is inside the Dubai Mall, so that property strategy changed into really prompted through the shape of the deal, taking the one's excessive you realize excessive investment belongings choices to reposition the brand, you understand, as top rate as we should get it, and it's nevertheless walking like a circle of relatives commercial enterprise at its center, yet nonetheless making those very cost-focused selections in place of making decisions for the inventory marketplace or the quarterly income report isn't a stress for me at all. You recognize that the family meets every Tuesday and talks approximately the destiny of the enterprise. I meet with Charles on a monthly basis to study the assets and the pricing and the location of the emblem, and those conversations might be distinctive with a unique shape for certain due to the fact one, of the belongings you said is I don't have a time horizon. This means that you're no longer trying to build an enterprise for 3 years and then sort of ship and get out, so that you stated I don't have a time horizon. I am going, which lets in you to construct a genuinely extraordinary business for the long term. Yeah, and that's what I'm type of getting it, due to the fact there'll be enterprise proprietors paying attention to this that are perhaps wondering, oh, I'll build for 2 years, then I will promote it, or I will construct for 3 years and I'll promote it. But what you alluded to there may be that you may create a miles higher commercial enterprise if you eliminate that time horizon. It has been for us and obviously I have been concerned in private equity investments. I imply there clearly is a place for that, and I'm now not saying you can not be a hit in the one's environments. It's simply labored for us that allows you to cognizance on, an indefinite time horizon and doing the right thing nowadays. I suggest in the end, private equity desires you to do the right thing today, and whether it performs out subsequent month, subsequent week, subsequent zone, I suppose from time to time the translation of the urgency of the investment window can be misinterpreted to make urgent decisions instead of the proper selections, and I suppose it's up to this to some degree. It is as much as the leader exec to say, wait a minute, you're all centered on the incorrect element just right now. We ought to try this, which goes to make more quarterly income next region, and I'll make my finances. However, the right decision is to invest in the medium term, long term, and right. Here's why. So I assume there is lots of stress, but to some degree it is that position of chief exec wherein you need to mention, wait a minute, that is the incorrect, wrong business decision, and we are able to construct a better business, be more a success via wondering not about subsequent area. What is the largest threat to Five Guys, largest threat to Five Men? I think dropping consciousness on the fundamentals of burgers and fries, thinking that we are something aside from being burgers and fries. You recognize that laser focused on making the nice burger you can for your mom. I imply that we're given to be at the middle of, you recognize of who we're and what we are about, treating each other like circle of relatives, and figuring out that it is the human beings who are in the store fundamentally that to me changed into the biggest inversion from banking, turned into, it felt like to me, a very prima donna-ish enterprise wherein very individual accomplishment and you can get in the end receives a commission via shifting from one save to every other and taking credit for paintings you might not were 100% responsible for on this enterprise. It is all about reflecting any glory that involves the business to those who are genuinely making the burgers and fries, taking care of the business. And to me, whenever if we had been to ever lose cognizance on burgers and fries, that would be the quit of the enterprise on a private stage. Then what makes you glad outdoor of the expert stuff outside of Five Guys? What are the elements that make you happy? It's the connection stuff, the painful, gritty, susceptible connection stuff, yeah, you already know. I suggest, like I tell my children now, you realize I suggest, I'm hoping that I am the guy which you name while something's long gone incorrect. You already know it is splendid. It is remarkable to get the calls that you acquire top grades, and that you already know you obtain the task you wanted and things are going nicely. You obtain it. Merchandising, you realize this is first rate, but I need to be the decision when something you realize while something is going wrong, while a person breaks up with you and you understand your job does not go the way you need to want it to move. You already know, to me, that connectivity at the susceptible area locations is the currency that is most treasured to me. It is a lot the motive why we started this podcast, to be sincere, because you recognize sometimes being a CEO, lots of it is about properly used to assume it became about being visible as being ideal and strong, and like you in no way had any non-public issues yourself. I assume it truly is possibly what I might found out approximately being a CEO and a leader. It become continually, you already know you have got to be a rock solid, but the reason why this podcast become called The Diary of a CEO is due to the fact CEOs are human beings too, a success people are human beings too, and it turns out they have got all of the identical and troubles and pain and private stuff that everyone else has in their lives, and you've pointed out an awful lot of that these days. I recognize this is a query I have asked some of my guests recently. I Definitely enjoyed asking the question, but there may be extremely of a pun in it, I wager in this case. If your happiness is a recipe including a collection of components and one-of-a-kind portions like, the Five Guys fries simply being three substances, what could be, what are the one's components, and is there something missing? Music nicely, I assume vulnerability is the biggest new ingredient that I have needed to blend into my existence. How to, yeah, I imply you realize, I assume, I suppose, the being separated from my children forced the you realize forced me to restudy everything, and that I suppose additionally figuring out that I've huge blind sides that I do not see, and that I have convictions approximately the way I think in my intentions, but absolutely there's a massive sea of unconscious motivations that I'm ignorant of, and purposefully so. Right? We construct our mental defense constructs to disclaim the unconscious motivations, however, that sincerely force us, and that is what my companions helped me to peer, which you recognize that there may be a lot that I suppose I'm doing something due to the fact I am attempting to be beneficent, and in fact it's not, because I am running out some anger, and I don't need to admit, which you understand, I want to be the coolest guy, right? And in being able to see that shadow side of yourself, and to acknowledge that, and to even embrace that, and to say it is K, that's part of me. And that's honestly, this has been the toughest bit for me inside the Beyond couple years, however, I assume in all likelihood the maximum, the most precious. What did you discover in the shadows? Oh gosh, all the stuff you do not need to look about yourself, that you're selfish, that you are, which I suppose you know. I grew up wondering that I couldn't specific bad emotions. You realize I could not be angry, I couldn't, you already know but that is going, I imply, of direction you get irritated, all human beings do, however, and that goes somewhere, and if you stuff it somewhere, it comes out within the worst methods that humans that you love and care about, and in ways which you're likely that I'm now not even aware of, so feeling that it is okay to be indignant, might be you recognize the toughest issue for me, I am just starting to paintings on that. I don't pretend to be true at it, however, being able to be, if I were to inform little John growing up, you recognize something, it would be, it's okay to have all the emotions which you have got, and there is room inside the global for all with a purpose to explicit them, and to sense them, and to own them, and you recognize to be a part of you, it's okay. And you recognize, even looking at my kids now, looking to say you already know clearly some bad tension in our relationship is certainly valuable, so one can see that it is okay, so that it will be indignant at me to be irritated at you, and to paintings those out, and it's going to be okay, and that we're going to be linked, despite that it's honestly effective, because they need as a way to take that into their grown-up relationships, and else they may, you already know, they'll struggle, they may warfare the one's places too, and it's going to come to be that intergenerational bad bags that gets passed. So I am trying to and do something unique in that regard, that communication with more youthful John approximately. It is okay to have a full variety of emotions, and to be irritated due to the fact, if you do not, you will harm the humans you care about in approaches which you do not intend, in ways which you don't understand, and they may now not understand. You already know I'm lucky in my partner, that you already know that she's pretty attuned. She's just completing her master's in psychotherapy, and so you recognize having the ability to say, yeah, I suggest I am getting this from you, even although you don't intend it, let's deal with it. It really is that's a present, well, you're speaking about there, as well as this technique of turning into more self-privy to yourself, because you're completely proper. Quite a few of the stuff I've been studying lately, approximately psychology talks approximately how we surely have, as exactly as you stated, have this default to simply reinforcing ourselves, reinforcing the way we think and believe, and attempting to find proof that confirms it, and confirms the identification we want to have of ourselves. But to grow to be self-conscious is a very difficult project, requires a large quantity of humility, remarks, unlearning, gaining knowledge of what has been the sensible ways which you've gone on that journey to end up more self-conscious. Is it therapy? Is it just the comments from your accomplice? What is, yeah, well, I assume first go through something certainly horribly painful in which you have to reconsider the whole lot and you recognize who you're and to be willing to place those on the table and say you understand my idea. I was being a superb companion. I wasn't you realize, and in being able to re-outline the givens of who you think it is. It's without a doubt, it truly is without a doubt painful and you already know you return up with those ways of considering yourself for a purpose, and they're generally protection mechanisms from a very young age, so those are not clean matters to give up. But to me it changed into I needed to do it or I would lose reference to absolutely everyone that I cared approximately, and to me it turned into it is connection is worth it and don't forget my grandmother, who turned into one of the first ones who taught me to love food. I had have a very peculiar relationship with meals in that regard, but she you understand, she become and past due in her existence. She changed into a brilliant cooked dinner, and I ought to see the affection, felt the love she had for me and the food that she prepared and late in existence she'd become in a retirement home, and in a few fitness inspector deemed a number of the food were surpassed like its expiry date. She came to me and she stated they have been trying to serve us food that changed into unfit for human consumption, and we have been like, oh, this is terrible, we're going to restoration. That however I continually worried that I by hook or by crook, mainly in a romantic accomplice pudding, become not worthy for human consumption, and perhaps in my bizarre, isolated countercultural upbringing there had been ability units that worked in being a commercial enterprise leader. However, maybe the ones very things disqualified me from being a success in a romantic relationship, and so overcoming that feel of being not worthy for human consumption in a romantic placing is it truly is tough, and turned into that causing some shape of self-sabotage in the romantic context inevitably and being able to cross returned and be given the poor feelings you realize it's not up to each person else to express my anger. For me it's as much as me should be up to me and I should be capable of spontaneously enjoy that during real time and express that in appropriate levels. That's it really is that's my to-do list. Have you been an excessive amount of a nice guy? So maybe occasionally, but yeah, I suggest remedy is brilliant. I pretty advise that you realize you cannot put money into your intellectual health, and that comes from you recognize someone who grew up with a psychiatrist for a dad and maybe perhaps like you recognize the cobbler's youngsters do not have footwear yeah, I assume you already know now I'm best closely in my intellectual health. There's a vast price range for that. There is a variety of what you had been announcing resonates with me very, very terrifyingly, and that the components that in reality I used to be I was most intrigued by means of is every now and then suppose in my romantic courting that I am perhaps negligent, and that I justify it to myself as because I am, you understand, running so hard and I'm attempting to offer a lot, and I am, and I assume every so often I am, you realize I would assume to myself, well, they just don't apprehend I am doing all of this hard paintings and they ought to appreciate you. No longer appreciate me, they need to be extra appreciative of all this tough work I am doing, and it's one of these egocentric way to observe, according due to the fact I'm serving myself, after which justifying my nearly neglecting someone through announcing, well, I am basically serving myself. It smiles absolutely, and that is, yeah, you have been speak me. I used to be a chunk scared that it really is me in some approaches. No nicely you keep in mind from the film Forrest Gump, in which he's speaking to his lady friend Janie, or the woman he loves, and he says, you recognize I am now not a clever guy, Janae, but I do realize what love is, and I sense like I am the foil for that, wherein I would in a few ways be a smart man, but I'm not at all convinced that I have any grasp of what love is, and you realize what is love. Will this like real actual love appear to be? It's likely no longer what I try and provide my companion. Sometimes you recognize, sincerely understanding what she wishes you already know. Every now and then I am giving a few imaginary you recognize assemble what I think they need, and then announcing properly you already know you should have that, as opposed to ache without a doubt, paying interest and going, you understand what's it that makes you understand, and feel cherished and known and favored and valued, and that is what I need to do. Did you no longer see that growing up at all, or you just now not taught it? Speak, you already know what I suggest, because now and again you could see it, however not know what is absolutely happening behind the scenes, so that you can see, oh, they appearance satisfied, however now not know, you know, I imply, I assume after I look returned on it, there had been people who I felt connection with, and I felt you already know a few warmth and in their presence, and I failed to take into account that I failed to go. It's love that without a doubt is them seeing me and you know, reaching out to me and connecting with me, and but you know, looking, maybe it's best searching return that you can type of see those matters correctly and then meaningfully. While you look forward, then what are the large goals for you, and you recognize I'm now not a person that buys into making you realize vision boards and having a 5 years plan and all that nonsense, because I suppose there's a positive agility required to achieve success individually and professionally, and placing your flag too a long way, you already know inside the destiny, is probably now not a wonderful idea in that scenario. But what are the observed whilst you consider your life in 10 years time? What is going to the foundations of that lifestyles appear like for it to be a sincerely superb one? Yeah, nicely. I assume from a business perspective, I love what I get to do. I mean, it feels love. It doesn't you realize sense like work. I mean, it appears like a present to be able to be a part of this business, a part of this, you understand, to own family who believes the integrity in their product. There may be no stress to compromise in any way this thing which you understand that we are doing, and you already know that feels first rate. So I suppose that the crew that we've constructed is successful. Of more I do not know what this is, however I'm excited to peer what that could be, and personally I assume we're given a whole lot of increase to do. I think I have just type of scratched the floor of all of the ways that I cowl up the motivation, the actual motivations that I have. So I wanna go after that with conviction and competitiveness. You recognize I am a very aggressive guy. I like, you already know anything. It's miles that I do. You recognize I form of move after it. Yeah, and a lot to examine, a lot to, however you understand. I assume on occasion that urgency would not work in intellectual fitness, and that sort of, you cannot rush to self-cognizance. Sometimes it form of now and again, it is, you know, sort of like the chook that form of lands in your hand whilst you understand being affected person. I think I've got to extend my repertoire of intensity, in that regard, one step at a time, and vulnerability being inclined, I assume, is one step at a time, in its form of like establishing the door a little bit at a time. It has been for me, besides I think due to the fact I used to be so scared to be prone, I assume, for a great deal of my existence, that I attempted the experiment of being vulnerable, seemed round, and it appeared to be okay. It appeared to assist me, seemed to help others. I opened the door a little bit further. It helped me, it helped others. And so over the last couple of years, this is a part of, because we do this podcast, is I have been capable of be extra susceptible, and it genuinely is this sort of selfish component, because it's the most incredible way to stay, to just be able to sit down right here and speak approximately masturbation, my intercourse. Lifestyles, intellectual health. I've got anxiety about this. It is the sort of loose manner to stay. The technology helps that you reflect on consideration on those who stay maximum most in track with who they simply are, seem to be the happiest. However, when I suppose about the real destructive results you see every now and then in positive communities who aren't being allowed to stay as they are, the suicide charges spike and the whole thing. So getting in the direction of your genuine inclined self, I suppose, is such a gift. And then the way it resonates, you'll see as a front runner, I'm certain you saw within the pandemic, you realize inclined leaders in the pandemic, I suppose, gained inclined leaders in terms of letting human beings go continually win. So while I used to be making ready for this conversation with you, Stephen, I went again and checked out some of the shows I'd carried out to my commercial enterprise, and one of the presentations that I did was called have, difficult instances, and then I went through and mentioned my difficult instances and being able to, and to me that became an actual turning point, as properly pronouncing, it is K, it's not best. Okay, it is definitely critical for to renowned that we've all had virtually difficult times that like break you apart as a human being, and you recognize you query the whole lot, and that's K right here. That changed into a, and then the feedback that I were given to say that became, you already know, that became a fine aspect that turned into amazingly, enjoyable. I'm so excited to announce our new sponsor for this podcast, and this is Blue Denims through Verizon. For any of you that are not already familiar with Blue Jeans, they are a video conferencing and collaboration tool who provide an immersive conversation revel in that drives. Quite exceptional worker and consumer engagement reports. Me and all of my teams throughout all of my portfolio companies switched over to Blue Jeans a couple of months ago, and we have no longer regarded. Again, the great aspect for us has been the definitely frictionless revel and no glitching, no sound problems, no delays, or any of those matters that normally make digital meetings surely irritating. We use Blue Jeans everywhere on any tool at any time, and it's perfect for my small organizations that simply have 10 or 20 human beings to some of my larger companies which have loads of human beings. I'm a large fan, as you can possibly tell, so I've been pretty excited for some time to announce this partnership, and inside the coming weeks I will provide an explanation for the functions and truly why it's ideal for you if you haven't taken into consideration the usage of or switching over to Blue Denims yet. However, in case you cannot wait, head over to BlueJeans.com to examine extra. Surely it has been one of the actual sort of recreation changers in my commercial enterprise. We do have a closing culture on this podcast, wherein the previous guests requested the following: visitor, you've got carried out your arrangements, sure, and that I do not study it till I open the ebook. So the query is, oh, who's the person you'll most like to mention? Sorry to, however, haven't. Wow, I have got a pretty long listing. I might say, I'd say my ex-spouse for being so ignorant of the things that I brought to the relationship that must have dissatisfied her for years, and you realize and insisted that, that they were not matters that you recognize I had stated or performed, and genuinely I suggest, I wager, I guess that could apply to everyone who I have had a romantic dating with, that you understand that I did not, I didn't bring my authentic self, that even although I used to be, and that I thought I was dwelling a useful existence, but did not. But then I would also, I guess I'd say, music, you recognize, I suppose there may be a dynamic with my dad and mom that probably falls into that class of making amends, and as both as the recipient and the offender of, you already know of some trauma in that regard, and then I guess I'd have to mention to Hayden and Lucy, my kids, for you recognize for not being there within the moments once they wished me, and you understand I can blame the UK court device as plenty as I need, but the reality is that there have been moments wherein they awoke and needed both their parents and in there, and I wasn't there, and you recognize I am deeply sorry for that, and they may be, and they are in all likelihood, there are in all likelihood plenty of others, in that list, however, it's a short summary. Thank you for your time these days, thanks for your know-how as it relates to enterprise and the tale of Five Guys that's just extraordinarily inspiring, and it's always such an honor to get to speak to CEOs and operators that have been part of disruption and sincerely underpinning and kind of actually unpicking how they have long gone about that. It really is so immensely valuable to me, and I've taken a lot far away from that during terms of the simplicity, in terms of element in phrases of setting the consumer first, in terms of the significance of expertise in this poor hiring idea, which I'm going to adopt in all of my businesses. However, even greater importantly for me is the vulnerability that you've proven, and the human in the back of all of that, because it really is the component that in the end humans can resonate with the maximum, because regardless of wherein we attain in our careers, regardless of how excessive we climb, it appears so truly obvious that when none folks are immune from the consequences of just being a person, and we are able to all relate to that regardless of wherein we're inside the international. So thanks a lot. It's been such an inspiring communique, and with a bit of luck, we're going to do it once more someday. Genuinely pleasure. Thanks for the time. Collectively, I had some phrases to say. Approximately one of my sponsors in this podcast, my female friend, got here upstairs the day before today whilst I was getting showered, and he or she stated to me that she attempted the Heal protein shake, which lives on my fridge over there, and she Or he said it is super low energy, you get your 20 bizarre grams of protein, you get your 26 nutrients and minerals, and it is nutritionally complete inside the protein area there. Maybe lots of things, however, it is tough to find something that is fine in particular when ate up simply with water, and that is nutritionally entire. The salted caramel one, if you position some ice cubes in it and also you positioned it in a blender and also you try as far as right is pretty a great deal any milkshake in the marketplace, simply blended with water, it has been a game changer for me because I am seeking to drop my calorie consumption and I am looking to be a bit greater healthful with my weight loss program, so that is in which Heal suits in my life. Thank you for creating a product that I honestly like. Music.